The first contact, the crystalline spires of Nexara pierced through violet clouds like frozen lightning. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her gloved hand against the viewport of the exploration vessel Pioneer, her breath fogging the reinforced glass. After 18 months traveling through the void, she had finally found what the deep space probes had hinted at, a world that defied all known planetary formation theories. Atmosphere is breathable, her colleague Dr. Marcus Chen announced, from the sensor station. Oxygen levels slightly higher than Earth normal. Gravity 0.93 standard. Temperature ranges acceptable. He paused, frowning at his readouts. But these electromagnetic readings, they're unlike anything in our database. Elena turned from the window, her dark eyes bright with anticipation. Life signs? Concentrated in those crystalline structures. The signatures are complex, highly organized, intelligent. First contact. The words hung unspoken between them. Humanity's greatest dream and deepest fear rolled into one moment. Elena had trained for this possibility, run through countless scenarios at the Academy, studied every theoretical protocol. But standing here, knowing that below them waited a truly alien intelligence, all that preparation felt inadequate. Prepare. The shuttle, she ordered, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. Standard first contact protocols. Full environmental suits, universal translator online, defensive shields only, no weapons visible. The descent through Nexara's atmosphere was smooth, almost unnaturally so. The planet's surface sparkled like a jewel box, vast plains of crystalline sand reflecting the light of the binary suns. The structures they had detected from orbit rose from this glittering landscape, not built upon it but grown from it, as if the planet itself had crystallized into architectural forms. As their shuttle touched down in a clearing between towering spires, Elena noticed movement. Figures emerged from the structures, tall and graceful, their bodies seeming to shimmer with an inner light. Through the shuttle's cameras, she could see them clearly, humanoid in basic shape, but utterly alien. In detail, their skin appeared translucent, revealing patterns of light flowing beneath like neural pathways made visible. Where humans had hair, these beings had crystalline growths that caught and refracted light into prismatic displays. "They're beautiful," Marcus whispered. Elena nodded, checking her suit's seals one final time. "Remember, no sudden movements, let them make the first approach." The airlock cycled open with a soft hiss. Elena stepped onto the crystalline sand, her boots crunching slightly on the surface. The aliens, she decided to call them Solarians, after their sun-like inner glow, had formed a semicircle about 20 meters away. One stepped forward, taller than the rest, its crystalline crown more elaborate. The universal translator crackled to life as the being spoke, its voice resonating with harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears and vibrate directly in Elena's bones. "You are not of Nexara. Your essence, it burns differently from ours." Elena raised her hand slowly in what she hoped was a universal gesture of greeting. "We are humans, from the planet Earth. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." The lead Solarian tilted its head, light patterns beneath its skin pulsing in what might have been curiosity or concern. "Humans," it repeated, the word sounding strange in its multitonal voice. "I am Xiphon, first speaker of the Crystal Council. You have traveled far to find us." "We are explorers," Elena replied. "We search the stars for other life, other intelligences. Finding you, this is the greatest moment in our history." Xiphon stepped closer, and Elena noticed the other Solarians, tensing, their inner lights flickering rapidly, some form of communication she couldn't understand. Xiphon raised a hand. 4 fingers, Elena noted, each ending in a crystalline nail that caught the light. "In our culture," Xiphon said, "first greeting requires the touch of knowing. It is how we share truth, establish trust." The being extended its hand toward Elena. "Will you accept our greeting, human Elena?" Through the translator, Elena could hear the formality, the ritual importance of the gesture. First contact protocols ran through her mind, Avoid physical contact until biological compatibility was confirmed. Maintain suit integrity. Minimize contamination risk. But looking into Xiphon's face, if the features she saw could be called a face, she saw something that transcended species. Hope, curiosity, a desire to connect. "My suit," she began. "We understand your caution," Xiphon replied. "But the touch of knowing cannot penetrate artificial barriers. It requires skin to skin, essence to essence. If you prefer, we can—" "No," Elena said, surprising herself with the firmness of her response. She looked back at Marcus, who was gesturing frantically from the shuttle's ramp. "Sometimes, understanding requires a leap of faith." She reached for her suit's glove release. The seals disengaged with a soft click, and she pulled off the glove, exposing her bare hand to Nexara's atmosphere. The air felt cool, tingling against her skin with an almost electric quality. Xiphon's inner light pulsed brighter, and Elena thought she detected surprise in the being's posture. Slowly, carefully, the Solarian reached out. Their hands met. The moment of contact sent a shock through Elena's system, not painful but overwhelming. Images flooded her mind, vast crystalline cities singing in harmony with the planet's core, Solarians linked in complex networks of shared consciousness, the deep loneliness of a species that had never encountered another intelligence. But beneath it all, she felt something else. Fear. Ancient primal fear. Xiphon jerked back as if burned, a sound like shattering crystal emanating from its throat. The other Solarians recoiled, their lights flashing in rapid, agitated patterns. Some fell to their knees, others backed away, their forms flickering between translucent and opaque. "Impossible," Xiphon whispered, staring at its own hand, then at Elena. You survived. The touch of knowing should have what?" Elena asked, alarmed by the dramatic reaction. "Destroyed you," another Solarian spoke, its voice thick with awe and terror. "Unraveled your essence, scattered your consciousness across the void. For 10,000 cycles, every being that has touched a Solarian has died. It is our curse, our protection, our isolation." Elena looked at her hand, then at the assembled aliens. No burns, no damage, not even a tingle beyond that initial shock. "But I'm fine. I felt your thoughts, your history, but—" "You felt?" Xiphon stepped forward again, all caution forgotten. "You experienced the touch of knowing? Shared our essence?" "Yes. It was beautiful. Overwhelming, but beautiful." The Solarians erupted in a cacophony of harmonics, their lights creating a dizzying display. Some prostrated themselves before Elena, others retreated further, and still others pressed forward, reaching out with desperate hope before pulling back at the last moment. "Please," Elena said, raising both hands. "I don't understand. Why would your touch be deadly? And why am I immune?" Xiphon's form solidified, its inner light settling into a steady glow. When it spoke again, its voice carried the weight of millennia. "Long ago, our species developed the ability to share consciousness through touch. It was our greatest gift, allowing perfect understanding, perfect unity. But something changed. A mutation, some say. A curse, say others. Our touch became poison to other life forms. We found ourselves alone in the universe, unable to connect with any consciousness but our own." The first speaker paused, studying Elena with an intensity that seemed to pierce through her. "For generations, we have dreamed of finding another species we could touch without destroying. We had given up hope. And now, you stand before us, unmarked by our curse. The question that burns in every Solarian mind is not just why you survived. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the question is, what are you?" Marcus's voice crackled through Elena's communicator. "Elena, your biometrics are off the charts. Whatever happened when you touched that alien—" "I'm fine, Marcus," she replied, not taking her eyes off Xiphon. "Better than fine. I think we've just changed the course of both our civilizations." Xiphon extended its hand again, hesitant, but hopeful. Will you come with us, Elena of Earth? Will you help us understand this miracle? Elena looked at the outstretched hand, crystalline and beautiful, deadly to all but her. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, not just first contact, but something far more profound. A bridge between species that had never been possible before. "I'll need to bring my team," she said. "And we'll need to run tests, understand the science behind this. But yes, Xiphon, I'll come." As she took the Solarian's hand again, feeling that electric connection spark between them, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that the universe had just shifted on its axis. Humanity's place among the stars had changed forever, and it had begun with a simple touch. The other Solarians began to sing. At least, that's how Elena's mind interpreted the harmonious resonance that filled the air. It was a song of wonder, of hope, of possibilities that had been thought lost forever, and as Xiphon led her toward the crystalline city, her hand still clasped in its deadly yet harmless grip, Elena wondered what other impossible things might become possible when two species dared to reach across the void. Behind them, Marcus scrambled from the shuttle, shouting into his communicator for the ship to prepare quarantine protocols, medical teams, and every xenobiologist on board. But Elena barely heard him. Her mind was filled with the lingering echo of the touch of knowing, and the profound realization that humanity's greatest adventure had only just begun. The crystalline spires of Nexara sang their welcome, and Elena Vasquez, the first human to survive a Solarian's touch, walked toward a future that neither species could have imagined. The bridge between worlds. The Solarian medical facility was unlike anything Elena had ever seen. The walls themselves seemed alive, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that responded to the presence of their occupants. Crystalline instruments floated in carefully controlled energy fields, and the examination table where Elena lay was warm, to the touch, adapting constantly to her body temperature and contours. "Fascinating," murmured Lyrics, the lead Solarian researcher. Unlike Xiphon's regal bearing, Lyrics moved with quick, precise gestures, its inner light flickering in rapid patterns that Elena was beginning to recognize as excitement. "Your neural pathways show remarkable resilience. When we initiate contact, our essence typically overwhelms other life forms, causing cascade failures throughout their consciousness matrix. But you adapt. You integrate. You survive." Elena watched the holographic displays floating above her, showing brain scans and energy readings she couldn't begin to interpret. "Could you explain in simpler terms? My translator is struggling with some of your scientific concepts." Lyrics paused, its crystalline fingers dancing through the air to manipulate the displays. "Imagine consciousness as a river. Each species has its own current, its own way of flowing. When a Solarian touches another being, our river floods theirs. The banks break, the water disperses, death follows." The being's light dimmed slightly. "But your river has something we've never encountered. Flexible banks, adaptive channels. When our essence flows into you, your consciousness doesn't break. It expands." "Emotional resilience," Elena said suddenly, the pieces clicking together. "Humans are incredibly adaptable psychologically. We've survived by being able to handle trauma, process contradictory emotions, hold multiple perspectives simultaneously. Maybe that's what protects us." An intriguing hypothesis. Lyrics leaned closer and Elena could see its features more clearly. The Solarian face was angular, with high cheekbones and large eyes that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. Beautiful and alien in equal measure. "May I?" Elena nodded, extending her hand. She'd grown more comfortable with the touch of knowing over the past 3 days, though each contact still sent that initial shock through her system. Lyrics's touch was different from Xiphon's, where the first speaker's essence felt ancient and formal. Lyrics burned with scientific curiosity. Images flooded between them. Elena's childhood in Sao Paulo, her first glimpse of the stars, the years of study that led her to this moment. From Lyrics she received flashes of Solarian history, a golden age when their species could commune freely with all life on Nexara, followed by the catastrophic change that made their touch deadly. The loneliness, the isolation, entire generations, born knowing they could never truly connect with other species. When they separated, Lyrix's light pulsed with what Elena had learned to recognize as deep emotion. Your species doesn't just survive trauma, the Solarian said. You transform it, use it, grow from it. This resilience, it's not just psychological. It's woven into the very fabric of your being. The door to the medical facility chimed, admitting Xiphon and two other Solarians Elena hadn't met. One was smaller, its crystalline crown arranged in delicate spirals. Vayara, she learned through quick introduction, the Council's chief harmonist. The other stood rigid, its light dim and controlled. Zarian, military commander, who regarded Elena with barely concealed suspicion. The Council has convened, Xiphon announced. Your presence has created ripples throughout our society, Dr. Vasquez. Some see you as the answer to our ancient prayers, others see her as a threat, Zarian interrupted, its harmonics harsh and discordant. For millennia, our isolation has been our protection. No species could conquer what they couldn't touch. Now you bring creatures who are immune to our defense. How long before your ships darken our skies? Before your soldiers march through our cities untouchable and unstoppable? Elena sat up carefully, meeting Zarian's hostile gaze. Commander, I understand your concerns. Any first contact carries risks, but humanity isn't interested in conquest. We're explorers, scientists. We seek understanding, not domination. Words, Zarian spat, or produced the harmonic equivalent. Every conqueror in history has spoken of peace while preparing for war. Enough, Xiphon intervened. The Council has decided. Dr. Vasquez, we invite you to address our full assembly. Your team may establish a temporary base on the surface, but further human presence on Nexara will depend on the outcome of these deliberations. Elena glanced at Lyrix, who gave her an encouraging pulse of light. Over the past days, she'd formed a particular bond with the researcher. Their shared scientific curiosity had bridged the gap between species in a way that went beyond even the touch of knowing. I accept, Elena said, but I have a request. Let me bring one other human, my colleague Dr. Chen. If the Council is to decide humanity's fate regarding Nexara, they should see that I'm not unique. Other humans can learn to interact safely with your people. Zarian's light flared. Absolutely not. One anomaly is risk. Enough. I agree to the request, Xiphon overrode, its authority absolute. But precautions will be taken. The human must wear protective barriers until we can confirm his immunity. As the Solarians departed to make preparations, Lyrix lingered. Elena, it said, using her name without title for the first time. What you're about to face in our council can be overwhelming even for Solarians. 100 minds, linked in partial unity, each carrying the weight of our species' hopes and fears. Are you certain you're ready? Elena smiled. A human expression she'd noticed fascinated the Solarians. I've spent my entire career preparing for the unknown, Lyrix. This is just another frontier. Perhaps, Lyrix replied, its light cycling through patterns Elena couldn't interpret. Or perhaps this is the frontier that changes everything. The council chamber occupied the heart of the largest crystalline spire, a vast spherical space where light itself seemed to bend and flow in impossible patterns. 100 Solarians were arranged in concentric circles, their individual glows merging into a collective radiance that made Elena's eyes water even through her protective lenses. Marcus stood beside her, his environmental suit gleaming under the alien lights. He'd taken the revelation of Elena's immunity well, though she could see the mixture of awe and concern in his eyes every time she casually touched one of their hosts. The human who bears the gift stands before us, Xiphon announced, its voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. She comes offering friendship between our species. She comes proving that our curse is not absolute. She comes bringing questions that shake the foundation of our understanding. A ripple of harmonics passed through the assembly. Doubt, hope, fear, curiosity all woven together in a symphony of light and sound. Elena stepped forward, feeling the weight of 100 alien gazes. "Honored counselors," she began, the translator, working overtime to convey her meaning. "I stand before you not as humanity's chosen representative, but as a scientist who stumbled upon something miraculous. Your touch doesn't kill me. We don't yet know why. But I believe this immunity represents an opportunity for both our species." "What opportunity?" The question came from somewhere in the upper tiers. "For 10,000 cycles we have been alone. We have adapted. We have survived. Why should we risk contamination by the outside universe now?" Elena had expected this resistance. Because isolation isn't the same as thriving. In the brief touches I've shared with your people, I've felt your loneliness, your yearning for connection. Humans understand this. We too were alone once, looking up at the stars and wondering if we'd ever find others to share the universe with. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But more than that, I believe our immunity isn't random. During my examinations with researcher Lyrics, we've discovered something remarkable. Human emotional resilience doesn't just protect us from your touch. It might hold the key to controlling it. The chamber erupted in discordant harmonics. Zerion rose from its position, light flaring aggressively. "Impossible. The curse cannot be controlled, cannot be reversed. You speak of fantasies, human." "Do I?" Elena turned to face the military commander directly. "Your own histories speak of a time before the curse, a golden age when Solarians could touch freely. What changed? A mutation? A disease? Or perhaps an evolutionary adaptation gone wrong?" She gestured to the assembly. "You've spent millennia believing your touch was a curse, but what if it's actually a defense mechanism that spiraled out of control? What if human resilience could teach your neural pathways to modulate the intensity? To touch without destroying?" Silence fell over the chamber. Even the constant background harmonics stilled. Vayara, the chief harmonist, stood slowly. "You suggest teaching us to control our own essence? To selectively diminish our greatest defense?" "I suggest learning to choose," Elena replied. "To have the power to kill with a touch when needed, but also the ability to connect without fear. Isn't that what you've all dreamed of?" Lyric stepped forward from its position among the scientific cast. "I've studied the human's neural patterns extensively. Her hypothesis has merit. Human consciousness demonstrates remarkable plasticity. If we could map those adaptation mechanisms, perhaps integrate them into our own neural architecture." "Heresy," someone whispered, but others leaned forward with obvious interest. Sci-Fi raised a hand for silence. "Dr. Vasquez, what you propose would require unprecedented cooperation between our species, shared research, deep integration, trust." "Yes," Elena agreed simply. "It would. But the alternative is continued isolation for your people, and a universe where humans and Solarians can never truly interact. I've felt your minds through the touch of knowing. You're a species of artists, philosophers, scientists. Imagine what our civilizations could accomplish together." She took a deep breath. "I propose a joint research project, human and Solarian scientists working together to understand and potentially modify the touch response. If we succeed, your people gain the choice of connection. If we fail, you're no worse off than before." "And what does humanity gain?" Zerion demanded. "What price for this gift you offer?" Elena smiled. "Partnership, alliance, the knowledge that we're not alone in the universe, and that we've helped another species break free from an ancient curse. Sometimes, Commander, the greatest gain is in the giving." Another moment of silence, then Xiphon addressed the assembly. "The council will deliberate. Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Chen, you will be escorted to quarters while we discuss your proposal." As Lyrics led them from the chamber, Elena caught fragments of the debate erupting behind them. Fear and hope warred in equal measure, but she'd planted the seed. Now she could only wait to see if it would grow. In the crystalline corridor outside, Marcus finally spoke. "That was incredible, Elena. You might have just changed the course of two civilizations. Or doomed them both," she replied, but her tone was light. Through the transparent walls, she could see Nexara's binary sun setting, painting the crystal city in shades of rose and gold. But that's what exploration is about, isn't it? Taking leaps into the unknown. Lyrix's light pulsed with what Elena had learned was amusement. Your species is remarkably optimistic for a race that evolved on a single world. Most species that achieve spaceflight do so out of desperation. You seem to do it out of curiosity. It's our greatest strength, Elena said, placing her bare hand on the Solarian's arm. The touch sent the familiar tingle through her system, but also something more, a sense of connection that transcended species. We see the impossible and ask why. Not. As they walked toward their quarters, Elena's mind was already racing with possibilities. If they could crack the secret of the Solarian touch, if they could give this species the gift of choice, it would be more than just a scientific breakthrough. It would be proof that the universe's greatest challenges could be overcome not through force or isolation, but through understanding and cooperation. The bridge between worlds had been built with a single touch. Now it was time to see how strong that bridge could become. The touch that heals 6 months had passed since Elena's first touch with Xiphon, and the joint research facility built at the intersection of the human base and the Solarian city hummed with activity. Scientists from both species worked side by side, separated by protective barriers that were becoming increasingly frustrating for all involved. Elena stood before a holographic display showing the latest neural mapping results, her excitement barely contained. Look at this, Lyrix. When we expose Solarian neural tissue to human emotional resonance patterns, the touch response decreased by 30%. Lyrix's light flickered, the equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Decreased but not eliminated. And these are only isolated tissue samples. A living Solarian's response would be far more complex. But it's progress. Dr. Chen interjected from his workstation. The first real evidence that the touch response can be modified. Elena nodded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The key seems to be in the limbic system analog. Human emotional processing creates a kind of buffer zone, a neural flexibility that absorbs and redirects the energy overflow instead of being overwhelmed by it. Theoretical adaptation is one thing. Xerion's harsh harmonics cut through the lab's atmosphere. The military commander had become a regular, if unwelcome, presence in their research. But you're asking us to fundamentally alter our neural architecture, to make ourselves vulnerable, to make yourselves free, Elena countered. The ability to choose connection over isolation isn't weakness, Commander. It's evolution. Xerion's light flared aggressively, but before the argument could escalate, Vayara entered the facility. The chief harmonist's presence always had a calming effect, its light patterns creating subtle resonances that soothed tension. The council has reached a decision, Vayara announced. Dr. Vasquez, your proposal for the experimental procedure has been approved. One volunteer will undergo the neural modification process. Elena's heart raced. They'd been building toward this moment. The first attempt to actually modify a living Solarian's touch response using mapped human neural patterns. It was dangerous, unprecedented, and their only real chance at proving the concept. Who volunteered? Lyrix asked, though Elena suspected the researcher already knew. Vayara's light cycled through complex patterns. I did. Shocked silence greeted this announcement. The chief harmonist was one of the most revered members of Solarian society, responsible for maintaining the psychic harmonies that bound their civilization together. Vayara, the risk, Xiphon began, having arrived with the harmonist. Is mine to take, Vayara interrupted gently. For too long I have maintained harmonies built on isolation and fear. If there is a chance for our people to choose connection, to touch without death, then I will be the bridge. Elena felt a surge of respect for the alien. We'll need to run more simulations, refine the procedure. The time for simulations has passed, Vayara replied. Every day we delay is another day our species remains prisoners of our own evolution. I am ready, Dr. Vasquez. The question is, are you? The preparation took another week. Elena and her team refined the neural pattern transfer protocol while Lyrics worked with Solarian bioengineers to develop a delivery system compatible with their unique physiology. The procedure would use a combination of human neural mapping and Solarian biocrystal technology to gradually alter Vayara's touch response. The night before the procedure, Elena found herself alone with Lyrics in the observation deck overlooking the Crystal City. Nexara's moons cast ethereal shadows through the spires, creating a light show that never failed to take her breath away. "Are you afraid?" Lyrics asked, its light dim with concern. Elena considered the question. "Terrified. If this fails, if we damage Vayara's abilities or worse, it could destroy everything we've built here. And if it succeeds, then we change the universe." Elena turned to face her colleague and friend. "Lyrics, there's something I need to tell you. These months working together, sharing ideas, pushing boundaries, you've become important to me, more than just a research partner." Lyrics's light patterns shifted to something Elena had never seen before, a complex spiral of colors that seemed to pull at something deep in her chest. "Humans and their emotional attachments," the Solarian said, but there was warmth in the E. Harmonics. "You've infected me with your species' need for connection. I find myself caring about your well-being beyond the requirements of our research." "Is that so terrible?" Elena asked softly. "Perhaps not," Lyrics replied. "Perhaps it's the first symptom of the change you're bringing to our species, the desire to connect despite the risk." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city, lights pulse in patterns that Elena was beginning to understand as a form of communication. Tomorrow would bring either breakthrough or catastrophe, but tonight, she was just a human standing beside an alien who had become dear to her, sharing a moment of peace before the storm. The procedure chamber was packed with observers from both species, separated by transparent barriers. Medical equipment hummed with energy, a fusion of human and Solarian technology that looked more like art than science. Vayara lay on the treatment platform, its light steady despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. "Final checks complete," Dr. Chen announced. "Neural pattern buffers are stable. Biocrystal integration matrix is online. We're ready." Elena took her position at the primary control station, Lyrics beside her. Through the barriers, she could see Xiphon's tense form, Zirian's aggressive stance, and dozens of other Solarians whose futures might be determined in the next few hours. "Vayara," Elena said through the communication system, "we'll start with microdoses of the neural pattern, allowing your system to adapt gradually. If at any point you feel unstable—" "I trust you, Dr. Vasquez," Vayara interrupted. "Begin." Elena initiated the sequence. The biocrystal matrix surrounding Vayara began to glow, pulsing in rhythm with the harmonist's natural light. Holographic displays showed neural activity in real time as human emotional resilience patterns were carefully introduced into Vayara's consciousness. For the first hour, everything proceeded smoothly. Vayara's vital signs remained stable, and the integration appeared to be taking hold. Then suddenly, alarms began to sound. "Neural cascade in Sector 7, Lyrics reported, fingers flying over controls. "The pattern integration is causing unexpected resonances." On the platform, Vayara's light began to flicker erratically. The harmonics emanating from the Solarian's form shifted from melodious to discordant, filling the chamber with sounds that made everyone wince. "Abort?" Chen asked, hand hovering over the emergency controls. "No," Elena said, studying the readings intently. "Wait. Look at this. The cascade isn't destructive, it's adaptive. Vayara's neural pathways are reconfiguring themselves." "That's impossible," one of the Solarian scientists objected. "Neural architecture doesn't just—" A pulse of pure light erupted from Vayara, flooding the chamber. Everyone shielded their eyes, and when the radiance faded, the harmonist was sitting up. Its form somehow different. The light patterns beneath its skin flowed in new configurations, more complex and nuanced than before. "Vayara?" Elena called out. "How do you feel?" The harmonist turned toward her, And Elena gasped. Vayara's eyes, previously solid black-like, all Solarians now showed hints of prismatic color, a rainbow shimmer that seemed to shift with emotion. I feel... Vayara paused, raising its hands to examine them. Different. Not diminished, but expanded. As if I've been seeing the universe through a single color and suddenly discovered the entire spectrum. The touch response? Lyrics asked urgently. Vayara's gaze moved to the assembled observers. There's only one way to know. The harmonist stood and walked to the barrier separating it from a young Solarian assistant. Lower the shield. Absolutely not, Sarion commanded. We don't know. Lower it, Xiphon overruled. This is why we're here. The barrier flickered and disappeared. Vayara extended its hand toward the assistant, who recoiled instinctively. Millennia of conditioning couldn't be overcome in an instant. Trust me, Vayara said gently. Trembling, the assistant reached out. Their hands met. Nothing happened. No death. No cellular dissolution. Just two Solarians touching, their lights mingling in patterns of wonder and joy. The assistant's knees buckled, overwhelmed not by destruction, but by the simple miracle of safe contact. The chamber erupted. Some Solarians pressed forward, desperate, to witness this impossibility. Others backed away, terrified of what it meant for their society. Sarion's light flared violently, harmonic suggesting rage or fear or both. It works, Elena breathed. The neural pattern integration actually works. But Vayara raised its other hand for silence. There's more. The touch isn't just safe, it's evolved. I can feel the assistant's emotions, share thoughts as before, but with control. I can choose the depth of connection, modulate the intensity, and the harmonist turned toward the human section of the chamber. Dr. Vasquez, would you join me? Elena didn't hesitate. She cycled through the airlock and approached Vayara, her bare hand extended. When they touched, the sensation was unlike anything she'd experienced before. The usual electric tingle was there, but layered with new dimensions. She could feel Vayara's joy, its wonder, but also catch glimpses of its thoughts without being overwhelmed. More remarkably, the connection flowed both ways. Through their joined hands, Elena sensed Vayara experiencing human emotion in its full complexity, not just as an observer but as a participant. Tears formed in the harmonist's prismatic eyes, a very human response from a very alien being. This is what you've given us, Vayara whispered. Not just safety, but depth. Not just touch, but true understanding. The success of Vayara's transformation sent shockwaves through Solarian society. Within days, volunteers lined up for the procedure, eager to experience this new way of being. Not everyone was suited for the transformation. It required a certain mental flexibility that not